Hello friends, this is me Khalid Miraj Malik over again here with a new video today. Perhaps this video is going to be the last video from the magnetism portion. So in today's video lecture we shall be discussing some small petty definitions but very useful definitions with respect to the competitive point of view. Okay, so starting off with it. Here one thing, yesterday we discussed, we kept an iron block in front of an electromagnet or in front of a coil. Okay, sometimes those blocks of metal, they are sometimes ferromagnetic. A ferromagnetic substance is one which has magnetization at the molecular or atomic level. Same is the case with a dimagnetic substance, but in a dimagnetic substance the magnetization has the opposite direction to that of the original coil or original electromagnet that caused the magnetization in it. Okay, then the third type comes. The third type is non-magnetic materials, say rubber, say wood. Those materials, they are not magnetized, they are not affected by any electromagnet or any magnet placed in close proximity to them, and they are not affected by the magnetic flux density or the density of the flux lines. Okay, magnetic force basically. Magnetostriction. Magnetostriction. This is simply change in dimensions. Change in dimensions. Change in dimensions of what? A ferromagnetic material block. When it is kept in the close proximity to another magnet, when it is kept in close proximity to a magnet or magnetic field, we say technically magnetic field, then what happens? A magnetism is induced in it, and when a magnetism is induced in it, its dimensions change. That is called as magnetostriction. And this happens with what? This happens with ferromagnetic materials. Ferromagnetic materials. Then case of, let us have a non-magnetic material. Non-magnetic material. Imagine having a block of non-magnetic material, say wood, say a block of wood or rubber or plastic, whatsoever it is. If that is taken for the analysis of hysteresis loop and is kept in the close proximity to an electromagnet, then what will be its interaction with the electromagnet? It will have no correlation with the electromagnet, and the magnetism, the magnetic force, the magnetic flux density B, that all H and B, all those things will be confined to the electromagnet only to the electromagnet itself. Okay. In that case, what will happen? Both H and B, they will be confined to the electromagnet or to the coil itself, and in that case, what will be the direction, what will be the shape of the hysteresis loop, and what will be the energy expenditure? Let us see. In case of a non-magnetic material, a hysteresis loop is like this, passing from the origin, a straight line passing from the origin. There is no residual magnetism, there is no coercive force, and the hysteresis loop is just like a straight line passing through the center. Now, in case of non-magnetic materials, say we have given an alternating current to what, to a coil, so as to make it an electromagnet. When the current is zero, B and H are zero in the in the coil. But when current rises from zero in the positive half cycle, B and H both rise. So for instance, let us say the energy expenditure for rising B from 0 to B max, magnetic flux density from 0 to its maximum value will be B is equal to mu naught H max square divided by 2 joules per meter cube. No, sorry, it is not in joules per meter cube. It is magnetic flux density. No. Sorry for the inconvenience. This is energy expenditure, as I already discussed here. This is the energy expenditure in word for let us write it here, for making B from 0 to B max, taking it to maximum value from 0. The energy expenditure will be E is equal to mu naught H max square upon 2 joules per meter cube. Yes, it will be in joules per meter cube. Why per meter cube? Per volume, per unit volume, because we have taken a block for analysis. Okay. And in this non-magnetic case, what will happen? The hysteresis loop will be like this. So magnetostriction is done, non-magnetic materials are done. Now, energy stored in a coil. When we pass an alternating current from a coil, what happens? A magnetism is induced in it, and that magnetism leads to some energy storage in the coil, which I already discussed in the previous lecture, that magnetism leads to humming sounds and energy dissipation when there are hysteresis losses. So the energy is being wasted over there, utilized over there as a wastage. But what energy? The energy that is stored. When a coil is given an alternating current source, a changing flux will be developed in it, which will lead to magnetism, and that ultimately will lead to energy storage in the coil. That energy will be equal to E equals to half of inductance of the coil into current passed through it, half Li square. This is the energy stored as an aggregate in the coil. But if energy stored in the coil per unit volume, that will have another formula. The formula will be magnetic flux density square B square upon twice of mu r mu naught. That will be the formula for energy per unit volume, energy stored in the coil for per unit volume. Okay. One another formula. Say we have a coil here. Its cross sectional area is A. When magnetism is induced in it, it will have magnetic lines of force both internally and externally. Say externally they are like this, from the north to the south pole. Okay. What will happen? More the denser are magnetic lines of force externally. If some coin is placed here in close proximity with this, what will happen? The coin will abruptly be lifted up, and that will stick to this. Just like a simple magnet, we place a magnet upon some screw, and the screw is taken up by it. We have often seen why as a playway method, often sometimes experimenting at home. Okay. More the magnetic lines of force here, more will be the attraction between north pole and south pole, more will be the force of attraction between north pole and south pole, and more will be the lifting power of this electromagnet. More will it lift the heavier object and stick the object will stick to it. So the formula for this is lifting power of a coil, or we say the same topic is force of attraction between poles of electromagnet. That will be equal to B square, magnetic flux density B square, into cross sectional area A upon twice of mu naught only here. Since no other object is taken as for observatory purpose in close proximity to this coil, so we would have to see only for the attraction between north and south pole, or the lifting power of this coil, and we will take into consideration only those magnetic force of line, magnetic lines of force, sorry. So they will be in air externally, and for the air, what is over there, permeability, that is mu naught. So that will be included in this formula. This will be a force F is equal to B square A upon twice of mu naught. Okay. With this, almost this magnetism portion is done. So if we see right from the very start, we started from network analysis, DC basics and networks. I think some small things, small concepts that we have skipped in between our lectures, we shall be discussing those 2 or 3 or a few petty things here in this last lecture of magnetism, and thus concluding it. Here we have friends, if we come upon the very first lecture, network analysis, from there we have skipped number of trees that could be formed from one given electrical network. Number of trees, that is equal to 4 times the number of nodes present in the original given electrical network. 4 times the nodes. Number of trees is 4 times the nodes. Number of equations that could be formed from the graph that we made from the original electrical network. So the number of equations that could be formed from the graph, that will be equal to total number of branches in the graph minus total number of nodes plus 1. This we have skipped from the very first lecture. If we come to the two-port networks, here in Z parameters, we discussed Z11, Z12, Z21, Z22. Say a two-port network be like this. On this side, if we fetch input, that is called excitation. Input is also called as excitation, and the output is also called as response. What will happen if the input and output, that is excitation and response, they are interchanged, and if upon the interchanging those transfer impedances, whatever the transfer impedances, Z12 and Z21, you can go over there on the lecture and see for it. Z12 and Z21 were transfer impedances. If the transfer impedances remain constant or remain same as it is, then that network will be called a linear network. Linear two-port network. On interchange of excitation and response, the transfer impedances remain constant, remain as it is, they don't change, remain constant. Is that done? So that is the linear two-port network. One another definition: symmetrical two-port network. Symmetrical two-port network. In that case, we have Z11 is equal to Z22. Here we have input impedance is equal to output impedance. Z11 is equal to Z22 in a symmetrical two-port network. The third one is reciprocal two-port network. In this one, in reciprocal two-port network, what is there? The transfer impedances are equal, that is Z21 is equal to Z12. Also, the transfer admittances are also equal. Y21 is equal to Y12. The transfer H parameters are also equal, but opposite to one another. That is, one will be positive and another will be negative. H21 is equal to minus H12. So those are the basic details of a reciprocal two-port network. So those were the very basic points that we had skipped in between our video lectures. Closing off with this portion. In the next portion, in the future videos, we shall be discussing AC basics and networks. Okay, thank you very much.